We'll do a bunch of stuff. I love that tune.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to Field Talk. Hello and good evening. Welcome to Field Talk. I am the Field, also known as Field of Bears, here to remind you that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. My chat application seems to not be loading at the moment. I will switch to this, and I forgot to grab my view output. Oh, great. There it goes. All right. I don't know 300-mile-an-hour torrential downpour now. I forgot to grab my teacup, so I'll be back in just a second. Alright. On copyright and freedom of speech. Our current communication paradigm depends on the free and open sharing of information and sources across the world. This is a fact. We put memes, ideas, videos, and links to sources up on various media platforms in order to communicate our ideas independently. Of the old paradigm, which depended on multi-million-dollar corporations necessary to build the infrastructures to broadcast to any notable degree pre-internet. Oh, that was an awful first. Well, yeah, it does make me. Center it? Like, let's try. Is that better? Answer Bear. Anyway, we live in the information age. A guy with a computer and a camera can start his own show with an investment of around $500. This a guy alone is beholden only to the whole market, not advertisers, not shareholders, just the free and untrammeled market. And what he wants is an audience. By being interesting and not just another corporate suit and necktie clone, because neckties are inferior. Uh, what's wrong? What's wrong, Boulder Bear? Still echo. Oh no. Okay. Let's go to filters, noise suppression. Is that any better? No, all my mics are. I tried fiddling with the noise suppression before. And I think I made it worse earlier. Is that better? I think it's no, it's not better. So go this way. What if I go that way? Does that change anything? Audio. Disabled, 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 disabled. Okay, it's getting better, so I need to turn that. Alright. I'll leave it there for now. Okay. Hopefully that's the same. You said it got better earlier. Yeah, that's on. Same now. Does that change anything at all? It's all of my mics are disabled. And so now I've got my noise suppression at negative 55. Thank you very much, Drunken Bear. I do quite like flat caps. I also have some fedoras. I would like to get other kinds of hats. Oh. I've just turned my speakers off. Does that help anything? Silent. No, I have carpet up on 3 of the walls and curtains over the door. So that shouldn't be the issue. If we're running into more echo than before, it can't be the space. Okay, so the echo doesn't sound alright. In that case, I'm going to keep reading the monologue. I thought that the Ryan Fights with Technology show was finally over, but shows what I know. Hey, Pinder, we're back to Ryan Fights with Technology show. Isn't that great? Okay, now it sounds perfect. Okay, I will close the filter. Good. All right. I will start back at by being interesting and not just another corporate suit and necktie, which are inferior to bow ties. Far inferior. Bow ties are the superior tie, especially American flag ones. Yeah, you guys are pretty awesome. Yes, bow ties are superior. Everyone knows that. Clone of corporate. Any individual can reach and influence hundreds or even thousands of people. The corporate media doesn't like this. In the early days of YouTube, corporate media waged an all-out war on independent creators using US copyright law. And some companies still refuse to acknowledge fair use provisions in the law, forcing creators to fight fraudulent or mendacious claims with an appeals system. However, thanks to the First Amendment, we here in the United States have good protections from such corporate controls, by SCOTUS striking down copyright laws without fair use provisions as unconstitutional. This has led to the alternative media flourishing, especially here in the US. Not every country has such a founding document. Britain doesn't have a constitution, for instance, so even though that isle is the birthplace of free speech, she has it not, as we saw in the Count Dankula case and another much more troubling case. Much more troubling. Similarly, the European countries with constitutions are not absolute in their protections of free speech, especially against the state. The French Constitution comes to mind. It is apparent that the European instinct to control is quite prevalent by the fact that not a single country protects free speech, and many of them have specifically outlawed certain classes of speech and slapped an emotionally charged label on it: hate speech. The trouble for them is here in America we haven't completely abandoned liberty, though our embrace to her is tepid. Thus, the bureaucratic project aspiring superstate known as the European Union has a solution to the project has a solution to protect the sluggish and inefficient media corporations. Their solution is draconian tightening of copyright. Rather than attempting to pursue the unassailable United States to abide by the communistic hate speech laws, they shall instead pressure American corporations who provide us with services enabling us to build audiences where they are vulnerable. Copyright liability. Article 13 proposes to make social media corporations liable for every post, tightens the window for takedown for copyrighted material, eliminates fair use provisions, imposes fees to the government for using copyrighted material, rather than the holder of the copyright, and broadens what counts as copyrighted to such a degree that posting hyperlinks to copyrighted material would be considered usage of such materials. It is so draconian that it is illegal for the holder to declare their material free to use, and it requires tech firms to implement automated upload filters. This will make everything but sanitized, state-approved media entirely impossible to produce, and must therefore be opposed by any and all who have the ability to oppose it. I, for one, can lend my voice to the opposition, and so I have done. All right. Hello, everyone. So that is my thought on Article 13. Now, it's like, since we have protections here in the U.S., it probably won't affect us terribly. However, it will affect the corporations that we use in order to create content. And since Europe is such a large market, they want to continue to be able to operate in markets. And so firms like Google and Twitter have really two options. Either capitulate to the German Reich, the Soft Reich, known as the European Union, or they resist. They threaten to pull out. They threaten to not serve the people who very much like those services unless they continue to respect the free and open way of using the internet. And it's funny to me that all of the net neutrality people don't seem to care very much about this new EU law which is being proposed. So if you know people in Europe, tell them to contact their whatever called in Europe people that are supposed to vote on these laws, and tell them to vote no. They should be saying don't vote for this nonsense, because there are ideas that are not specifically covered by hate speech laws. Mostly the speech that comes from the United States, and sometimes abusive laws known as hate speech laws. So what the EU wants to do is block their people from seeing these arguments or ideas or whatever at all. And in order to do that, they're going to put pressure on the companies that facilitate our communication. All right, Veteran Bear, you're gonna stream. Yeah. Oh, link in the description for the Tommy poster. There's a whole bunch of them done by Sabo. Yeah, the awesome street artist who lives in Los Angeles and is fighting the soy with art. And that goes back to the Tommy Robinson thing. Yeah. Exactly, Drunken Bear. They want to kill the memes. They want to like that back there, that poster, and the link in the description to it. I would have to pay a tax to the European Union in order to link it, and it'd be available in the European Union. Otherwise, it would have to be region locked out, and the EU would need any of my European audience members. Because I know I have a few, at least in my Twitter audience. Not very many. Most of them are Canadians and Americans. But regardless, any of my European audience members would need to use a VPN, if that's even still accessible, in order to use it. Because, as we found out, a draconian, communistic, authoritarian nightmare country like China can actually ban the usage of VPNs. Yeah, I'm looking forward to just not at 5 o'clock Pacific time, and I will definitely join in, and I'll retweet them. Well, no, Veteran Bear, they won't submit. Not always. It may look like they've submitted because you can't hear what they're saying after you've silenced them. If you silence your enemy and they refuse to submit, that's when the killing starts. And personally, I'd like to avoid the killing. I think killing is bad. If we can preserve liberty without killing anybody, that would be far preferable to actually going into the blood of a battlefield in order to do it. We already had this war here in America, and even in Europe, they've already had wars to secure liberty. we should not need to do it again. We should not need to kill good men in order to preserve liberty. It's awful. Yeah, killing bad, okay? But that's something that seems to be beyond the ken of the autocrats in charge of the EU. The less you're able to speak, the more likely you are to act, and act in a way I wouldn't be so certain about that, Veteran Bear. I would not be surprised at all to see in Germany sometime within the next 10 years a violent revolution. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Because as we've learned from the multiple terrorist attacks in these European countries which have ostensibly banned firearms, people with criminal inclinations can get a hold of them. Veteran Bear, currently I think that you're correct about that, but they won't tell our soldiers that they're going in to kill freedom-loving people. They would tell our soldiers that they're going in to kill terrorists and evil people who kill babies and eat dog brains. I don't think that we need a war, Drunken Bear. I think we need truth. The devil won't be able to vomit into your kettle if you keep the lid on. You're right, B. West. What they're trying to do is hamper the communication of freedom-loving people, of the Eurosceptic movement, of the nation-state movements in these various European countries who want to decentralize control and have a more localized form of government that will be smaller and more accountable to the people, which is obviously preferable to the bureaucratic nightmare of a European superstate that has a legislative body that is appointed and not elected. But it's like, obviously, liberty is preferable even to that, but so far, we can only have so much liberty with the authoritarian controlling people out there and also the frightened people, the people who are frightened of liberty, who crave security and think they can trade one for the other without losing both. It's difficult to get total liberty with people who still think that way. Well, actually, Veteran Bear, look at what has happened in Italy. It's really interesting. They elected a less left-wing government. Like they're not exactly looking to roll back the welfare programs in Italy, but what they are doing is saying that they're going to delete a whole bunch of deport a whole bunch of illegal migrants back to North Africa where they came from. And they got elected. That party got elected for the government, but the president, who is an EU, the president of Italy, prevented the formation of the government in Italy. I don't know how that works in Italy, but apparently he can do that, and he's an EU guy. So it's not necessarily that the Europeans are drinking the soy, it's that their leaders are trying to give them a soy enema whether they want it or not. You can't hear anything? Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I follow you on Twitter, Vansterbear, but I need to find that and I'll tweet that out as well. Okay, yeah, because everyone else was saying they could at least hear me. And I am leaning in pretty close. Hopefully you guys can see. Yeah, just like my bow tie is superior to neckties, the flag which it represents is superior to all other flags, while it would still be inferior to true and complete liberty. Okay, good. Yeah, you Shamrock. Oops, wrong one. There we go. So that's yeah. So and also think about the fact that Ireland had to vote on joining the EU twice so that they would write the correct vote, and they were trying to make the Brexit so the EU people were trying to say that the British people didn't vote correctly the first time with Brexit. So I'm not so sure that we should write off the European people, because there are countries in Europe that have a very strong resistance to the soy. Like Poland. Poland has a very strong resistance to the soy right now. They have the ability, and was it Hungary? Hungary as well, where they are enforcing their own borders in such a way that it doesn't actually involve. They're not actually deporting people; they're just detaining people in camps and not letting them into the interior of their countries, and saying you have two options: you either go someplace else or you try to emigrate properly. So that's pretty interesting how they're able to resist that way. Although it does strike me as odd that this project, which is attempting to become the United States of Europe, requires resisting in such a legalistic, loophole finding way, rather than in the open field of debate. So check this. Oh, my chat client isn't. That's weird. Yeah, my chat client isn't working very well. Well, honestly, the companies that they're targeting have more influence with the EU than the EU has influence with them. It's a lot of people have it backward. Going on here. Should still be working. Please still be working. Okay. It was just the web page. For some reason, my chat is not connecting. Let me try reconnect. Hopefully it's working. Working? Damn, it's not working. Oh well. So I think it's very, very important for everyone to let their total opposition to this draconian and backward copyright system be known. Because there was a similar thing with the what was it, SOPA, and we were able to. Yes, we do need to keep standing for liberty, Veteran Bear. Okay, my chat seems to be working again. We need to continue as loudly and as forcefully and as clearly as possible stand up for liberty, because she doesn't stand up for herself. Like, once we have her in our embrace, then liberty protects us just by virtue of our own being free. However, in order to have her, we have to protect her from, well, enemies foreign and domestic, from the authoritarian creep, from the instinct to control other people, to view other humans as resources. That instinct is very prevalent, it's strong, and honestly, I am not certain how I would behave if I was in a position of power, which is why the thought of being a king terrifies me, and it ought to terrify everybody. The thought of being a king should be the most awful thought to anyone on this planet, because you don't know whether you'd be a good king or a bad king. And either way, you can't be a moral king, because then you would be owning other people and violating their autonomy by the very nature of ruling someone. And it doesn't even have to be a hereditary monarchy being justified by religious beliefs. It could be a different kind of autocratic system with a single person in charge, like, oh, I don't know, North Korea or China. Yeah. What do you mean nobody is at home? Ultimate, super, ultra, omega, clean nacho. I'm here in the studio, face looking right at you. I think, yeah, the instinct to rule, to control. I think it's the shadow of the desire for security, because the most unpredictable thing in the world is other people. But it's impossible to control other people without violating their free will, without being immoral toward them. So we have to learn to live in a frightening world, and to make it less frightening, what we can do is be ourselves as trustworthy as humanly possible. If every individual decides to be a trustworthy individual, then the need to be mistrusting of other people is significantly diminished, to the point where you can deal with people. Oh, man, my chat app is not working. So, yeah. I don't know why my chat app is not working. But, oh well. Let's go ahead and pop out review. There we go. At least that way. You can see the chat, even though it's not coming up on my screen right now. Yeah, I don't lock my door either, Boulder Bear. I live way out in the country, and there's no need to lock my door because the dogs will chase you away if you come across the gate. Knock knock. But that's yeah. If every individual acts need to be mistrustful of other people is significantly diminished to the point where we can act as though everyone else is as trustworthy as we are. Wouldn't that be very nice? Wouldn't it be excellent if wouldn't it just be wonderful if we could live in a world where everyone was as trustworthy as well, money is sort of based on trust. Money is based on an agreed exchange of value, an agreed upon store of value. Our currency, we can't really trust it very much because the Federal Reserve keeps on introducing large amounts of currency into the system rather than rather than having a stable monetary supply that can be counted on. Oh, did it just die? Great. Let's see. Output. Alright, let's see what that does. There we go. Back. And it looks like the chat app is working in. I thought I would be able to raise the bit rate to 1,000, but I turned it down to 500, and I think I'll leave it there for now. Sorry, dudes. I was trying to give you a better picture of my glorious visage. My absolutely stunning handlebar moustache. But yeah, I don't think you can actually assail the idea. I don't think that you can assail the idea that it is better to have a more trustworthy and trusting society than a more controlled and untrustworthy society. Because the more authoritarian control a society has, then the less you can actually trust people. Because the only thing that's holding them in check, instead of the threat of losing their trustworthiness, is consequences laid down by the state, which I think is inferior to loss of reputation and loss of people willing to deal with you and things like that. Hey, the best answers. You missed the monologue. In most of our discussion about why having a freer, more liberty-loving society is superior to an authoritarian society. And the more honest and trustworthy the people that you have in a society, the more permissive you can be as well with artists and other such free radicals to try new ideas as well. Because if you assume that someone with a new idea has good intentions with that idea, then you don't have the reaction to try and squish it. You are willing to let the idea play out in that person's life and see what happens. You're right, Boulder Bear. People do need to be honest with themselves first. See, that idea, it doesn't need to be squished. It's just incorrect. The idea of gender spectrum, it's just incorrect. You know how you know that gender spectrum is incorrect? One of the places on that spectrum is called non-binary. You can't call something non-binary and then just say it's not binary anymore. The name itself implies that there is a binary and that this thing falls outside of that. Well, either there's a binary or there isn't. There can't be an in-between of what things actually are. If something is a spectrum, then it's a spectrum. But if it's a binary, then it's a binary. They're different things. They don't have any overlapping qualities. So it's like, but the problem with the gender spectrum idea actually is that taxpayer money goes into creating propaganda in order to propagate the idea further into society, regardless of its validity. Because the idea of the gender spectrum doesn't have to face the market, the idea is insulated from both criticism and rejection. And it can continue to be furthered in universities to students who don't have a choice in whether they want to imbibe the idea or not. Well, Veteran Bear, see what the socialists want to do is deny reality. They don't want a false reality. They want reality to not exist because reality disproves their retarded system. And that's why they're attacking things like biological sex. Well, see, that's like saying that no, that's not right because whether light is there or not is binary, but the kind of light it is on a spectrum. So you can either be a human or not, you can either be alive or not, but you'll be of varying degrees of thin or fat, muscular or weak, or other variable traits. However, since the only way for humans to reproduce is sexually, and that takes a male and a female, then there's no reason for a third or fourth or fifth or 72nd option to exist between those two poles. There's just, in fact, it's impossible for an option outside of those two poles to exist because it would interfere with the reproductive process to such a degree that any outlier that's created biologically is incapable of reproducing most intersex people. Well, Veteran Bear, the thing about 1984 is Orwell was writing a warning. That wasn't actually a declaration of intentions. What it was saying, look, if you're going to talk about restricting people's ability to speak, this is where it leads to. So don't do it. And then the communists and socialists, they look at that and they go, wow, that's a great plan. Postmodernism. You're right. If reality is a lie, then you don't have to change your retarded economic system that flies in the face of reality and that made tons of predictions, every single last one of them wrong. You're right, Boulder Bear. They are using it as a manual, which is absolutely antithetical to why it was written in the first place. And it's like, now this might be autistic brain speaking a little bit, but the old saying about if you're not a liberal in your 20s, then you have no heart, but if you haven't outgrown it by your 30s, then you have no brain. I don't think that's quite right, because I don't think that compassionate people steal. And while that quote is misusing the word liberal to mean socialist, the only way for there to be socialism is to steal from the productive and give to the less productive or unproductive. So I don't think that a compassionate person steals. I don't think that's what compassion does. You can't be compassionate and then go around and steal other people's legitimately gotten gains. I think you can be tricked with your compassion into thinking that you're not stealing, you're just helping people who are less fortunate. But they don't tell you that the government doesn't actually create any money or anything of value. They can't create. All the government really is a monopoly on force. And the only way the government can provide material goods to anyone else is if they take them away from somebody who produced them or legitimately traded for them and give them to somebody else. Yeah, I think that Boulder Bear, you probably didn't have compassion from the people you were stealing from. That's correct. The best answers. And I don't, and then leftists will turn around and say that so-called conservatives have no empathy for the poor, but it's like, I don't understand why robbing successful people in order to hand out tiny little crumbs to poor people so they can continue on their meager existence with just enough so that they don't feel the pressure to improve themselves, while the bureaucrats line their pockets with the rest. I don't understand how that's empathetic to the poor. I mean, sure, you can say that maybe some conservatives are being callous when they say pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can make that case, but you should look at the results of what you're advocating, and it isn't making fewer poor people. It's making more stagnation of people already in poverty. It's making the poverty trap more difficult to escape. What you're advocating, the welfare state, socialism, it's doing the opposite of what you say you want. See, Veteran Bear, what Robin Hood did was he took he reclaimed the stolen property from the Lord and gave it back to the peasants. He took away from the Lord because, the Lord got his money from taxing people, and as we all know, taxation is theft. I don't know what you mean by that, Boulder Bear. I don't know what you mean by make more people equal and the hierarchy is true. Well, the best answers brings up that progressive compassion looks a whole lot like buying votes, and I think that's what the politicians are doing, and I think they know they're doing it. However, I'm not. I think that a lot of people are duped. A lot of people don't have time to really think about this, and a lot of people don't have anyone to talk these things through with either. You're right, Veteran Bear. It isn't callous to say pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you provide an opportunity to do it as well. And even if you can't, sometimes you can point out the path that you took. Like if you know the path and you point it out to someone, that's the opposite of being callous. That's that's saying, hey, what you're doing didn't work for me. Here's the thing that worked for me. It's the opposite of callousness. That is real compassion. That is real empathy. That is real advice to really help somebody. If you know what works for you and you offer someone that information that they might have never heard before because they don't have a dad or they were stuck in horrible government schools and are in a generational welfare trap, then that is, in fact, real empathy. If you can give someone a job, sure. Like, I can't employ anyone right now. I would love to be able to employ people doing this. That would be amazing. Yeah, you're right. The media does not bring up vote buying anymore. They used to accuse wealthy politicians of paying people to go to the polls and vote for them. But I don't see how putting a welfare program on the ballot is different from paying people to vote for that. It's like go and vote for more welfare and you'll get more welfare. How is that not bribery? See, Boulder Bear, I do slightly disagree because poverty is relative to wealth. There will never be a society which does not have people who are poorer than the rest. What there can be are societies that are so wealthy that the poor suffer, don't suffer terribly anyway. They might suffer emotionally from jealousy or envy, but that can be dealt with on an individual level much better. But in a society that is so wealthy, so successful, so prosperous, it's possible to get to the point where the poor, even the poor, have enough prosperity to not suffer. Yeah, that Lyndon Johnson quote. Lyndon B. Johnson said that he would have those niggers voting Democrat for the next 100 years, right before he started his Great Society program. I wonder why. And and that was a horrible thing to say. I think that LBJ hated humanity. Right? Is he dead yet? Yeah. Like the poor in America are considered rich in the rest of the world as well. Like funny thing about poor people in America, they're the biggest problem that poor people in America face is obesity, and it's a real problem. Okay, yeah, he's dead. I was grammatically correct. Yeah, you're right, Veteran Bear, but like obesity really is an awful problem to have to deal with. It's mostly self-inflicted, unless your parents inflicted it on you. I know people who had obesity inflicted on them by their parents, and I think that's abusive. And there ought to be some form of consequence of that. And it might end up taking years for those consequences to accrue to those parents. And it might end up taking the form of being stuck in a nursing home that doesn't nourish them properly. But that would be because the children are unable to forgive and the parents are unable to make amends. But not too much. Well, why are poor people spending a bunch of money on just desserts then? Are you kidding me? All right, see y'all, American. I'm about to. We've got 3 minutes left. It's 5:57. So we did manage to talk about. Yeah, you're right. That's how they want to kill off. I think that my misanthrope idea has something to it. I think that socialists actually do hate humanity. I think that racists actually do hate humanity. I think that sexists actually do hate humanity. I think that anti-religious, hateful, bigot people, I don't have an English word for it at the moment. I think they actually do hate humanity. And I think that they advocate for the governmental and economic system that they do precisely because it is so destructive to humanity. And I would like to formulate that properly, but tomorrow I'm going to sit down and write. No, I don't like religiophobes. I don't like that word. I don't like using the suffix phobe for hatred because having an irrational fear is a serious psychological issue and it should not be trivialized like that. I think that the propagation of the words homophobe and Islamophobe are a travesty against the English language, especially because homophobe actually has a meaning. Fear of sameness or stagnation. So, yeah, we had a very good discussion tonight with everybody. The Ryan Fights with Technologies portion of the stream didn't last too long, which was good. And yeah, this has been Field Talk with the Field, also known as Field of Bears. You can sow the field at paypal.me/Field Talk. You can follow me on Twitter at Field of Bears. If you had a good time, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to get notifications. And never forget that socialism always ends in starvation and genocide. Have a good night, everybody.